On March 27, 2009, after a long battle against the state of Kansas, Dr. George Tiller is found not guilty of all charges connected to his medical practice.
Defendant not guilty of illegal abortion as alleged in count 1.
Although a jury acquits him in less than an hour, the victory is short-lived. He's immediately notified of another impending investigation, this time by the top medical authority in the state, the Kansas Board of Healing Arts, on the exact same charges.
Why? Because one of the Operation Rescue people lodged a complaint on the same charges. He didn't even have time to enjoy the fact that he had finally won. And then another blow. It was just never going to end.
Although this is a positive development for Operation Rescue, it is of little consolation to Scott Roeder, who is utterly distraught by Dr. Tiller's acquittal. For Roeder, the court's ruling is the last straw.
He said, wait. The legislature tried and they weren't successful. And the grand juries weren't successful. And he was acquitted by a jury. Well, somebody had to stop him. And that somebody is going to be me.
By this point, in the spring of 2009, Scott Roeder is living apart from his ex-wife and teenage son. He shares an apartment with a roommate, works a series of menial jobs, and spends most of his time studying scripture with others devoted to Messianic Judaism, a form of evangelical Christianity.
There was a Bible group that he would go to. Those individuals during that time would talk about a variety of things. But he also, during those conversations, had talked about Dr. Tiller, that someone must take action and end Tiller's life. At that time, I think Roeder began really formulating a plan to end the life of Dr. Tiller.
And he finally started to recognize that the only point that he could find him where he would be unaware would be at his church. So Scott Roeder started to make trips down to Wichita. He would go and attend services at the Reformation Lutheran Church.
We just thought he was interested in joining our church.
I couldn't help but notice that he was never a part of the service. He was not worshiping in our church. And it bothered me to the point that I followed him out and saw the car that he got into, and I wrote his license tag number at that point.
He was not accepted by the congregation, did not fit in, but there was never an indication he was there to hurt Dr. Tiller.
On Sunday, May 24th, Scott Roeder travels the 200 miles from his home in Kansas City to Wichita. He visits the Reformation Lutheran Church once again, this time with full intent to kill Dr. Tiller.
Scott, were you armed that day?
Yes.
What were you armed with?
I believe it was the Taurus.
The 22 Taurus?
Yes.
But Dr. Tiller is not at church that day, so Scott Roeder returns to Kansas City. 5 days later, Roeder calls his ex-wife with a request to spend the evening with his teenage son. Having devoted himself to the laws of Messianic Judaism and its strict adherence to the Friday Sabbath, it's very out of character for Roeder.
Picked up his son, took him to dinner. They spent some time together, which again, his son knew that was very unusual. Just the fact that it was Friday, and on the Sabbath, that shouldn't have happened.
They went to dinner, they went to a movie. Scott wanted to buy him ice cream. He wanted to go with him to visit with his friends. He didn't want the evening to end. He wanted it to go on and on. One of the first things Nick realized after he had heard about the shooting, after Scott had been arrested, was, wow, Mom, he was saying goodbye to me.
The next morning, Saturday, May 30th, Roeder visits his brother in Topeka and then returns to Wichita, checking into a motel by sundown.
And do you remember what you did that night?
Watched TV, ate dinner, and went to bed.
Pretty calm evening.
Yeah.
Were you preparing yourself for the next morning?
Yes.